Hello, my name is Frank Christensen and I'm the coordinator of officials for IFAF in Europe. In this training tape, we'll look at some disqualification fouls. So both the unsportsmanlike type, but also the flagrant personal foul type. But before we get that far, before we get to the game film, let's have a look to see what the rulebook and the MOFO have to say on this topic. In the rulebook, we go to 911 flagrant personal fouls. Article 1 says, before the game, during the game, and between periods, all flagrant personal fouls require disqualification. Team B disqualification personal fouls require first downs if not in conflict with other rules. In the MOFO, we go to section 3.5 on fighting, and 7a says, if action is deemed to be fighting, then the player must be disqualified. It is not fighting if players are merely pushing each other. That means no deliberate punches, kicks, or blows are struck or aimed. If in doubt, it is not fighting. And don't use the term punch to describe roughness to a player or coach unless it is associated with a disqualification. And that was the book. Now let's have a look at some examples in the game film. In this first example, in this first play, we're looking at unsportsmanlike conduct and whether or not we have two separate acts. So B20 is going to make this interception, and he's going to do this gesture towards the sideline, and then he's going to do the dance thing right there. And if there's any way that we can, and I think we should make this one act. If you look at his body language there, he's doing the airplane first, and then he's still moving, and then it turns into a dance. Now you could argue that the airplane is one and the dance is two, but I would argue that if there's anything that if there's any way that we can, we should make this into one action. Now, if he turns around there and yells or says something that is completely separate, then we're looking at a second act. But here, I think we should have had this as one act, and compare this to the next play where we have a similar situation. For comparison, this play we're looking at the slot back away from the camera. And initially, this is just a chicken fighting between the two players. They're both into it, and it's a good offset with these two players. And it's still one act, and 87 now turns around, he's going away, and then he turns around and yells something back. So here we have now that one act is over, he has turned around, he's going to his sideline, and then he decides to interject something maybe about the opponent's mother or whatever. But now this is the second act. So compare that to the first one where it's pretty much like this. This is still one act, it's still going on, the same thing is going on. But right there we have the separator, which we didn't have in the first play nearly as much. So it is a gray zone when does this one act turn into two acts, and this is something that we have to be able to separate. But I think here the fact that he turns around and takes several steps away from the action and then decides to participate again, that is enough for a second act and correctly called disqualification. On this next play, we're looking at a flagrant personal foul. It's going to happen against the snapper. So against the center, A72, and they're going to be pushing around a little bit and then whack like that. So first thing first is the first push there. Is that enough for it to be offsetting fouls? And I don't think it is. I mean, there's a little push there, but that's not really anything. And then this head slap there. This is really too much to let go. This should be a disqualification. Next question is, well, it happens with a flat hand. There's a difference between a flat hand and a clenched fist. And in this case here, this is big enough that whether it's a flat hand or a fist, I mean, this is a punch, no matter how you cut it. And the escalation by the defense, from the small ticky-tacky pushing that we have right there, the escalation is like 2 or 3 levels up. And when that's the case, I'm perfectly fine with this only being a foul on the defensive player. So well done by the deep wing to catch this. This was caught correctly so, and again, this is enough for a flagrant personal foul. On this play, we're looking at slot back A85 here closest to the camera, and compare the head slap or the punch from the last play to this, which happens right there against the defender. And the previous one was clearly enough. This we just don't have enough here for disqualification or in my opinion for a personal foul. I mean, it looks like they're both into this, and I mean, we could certainly have a talk to here, but I'm not even sure we have enough for chicken fighting or unnecessary roughness here. So this is not enough compared to the last one where the punch certainly was enough. We're looking at B8, who's the 2-point stance defensive end on the left here, engaging with the running back, and after he's beaten him, he does that, a punch to the head, which is certainly enough for disqualification. Good cleanup by this referee. In this last play, we're looking at B57, so he's on the left side of the screen right next to or inside of B42, and he's going to engage. Everything is fine, and then they're doing some stuff, and he gets up and then he punches the guy in the gut. I mean, it's just a total cheap shot, and this certainly is completely football unrelated and has nothing to do with the game, and a good call by the umpire and whoever else calls this. Good cleanup, because this certainly is punch like this is completely inside of what we want before we want to go disqualification or ejection. So good call, good cleanup, and certainly within the rules to disqualify this player. And that was the training tape. I hope it made sense, and I hope you found something you can use on the field.